To say that the last year and a half has been a challenging year and a half for the theater industry is a bit of an understatement. This has been obviously a cataclysmic year for the theater industry. It's hard to have an industry that is built on having people come to you and then have a global pandemic where people cannot come to you. It has been pretty rough. And one of the organizations that has really suffered as a result of that has, of course, been AMC Theatres. AMC Theatres has also, in the past year, so now, just for clarity here, and for full disclosure, I, of course, worked with AMC Theatres for a bunch of years. I have a very fond place in my heart for the people of AMC Theatres. I had a wonderful experience working with AMC Theatres right up until the end when that pack of jackals and, moronic imbeciles that are the HR department of AMC Theatres, bunch of incompetent twats. Anyway.
How do you really feel?
How do I really feel about that? Anyway, just my opinion, ladies and gentlemen. Bunch of morons over there. Anyway, but aside from that, I actually do have a very, very soft spot in my heart for AMC Theatres. I really do. And they are my theater of choice. They're totally my theater of choice. If I've got a choice to go to an ArcLight or a Regal or a Cinemark or an AMC, 10 times out of 10, I'll go to the AMC Theater. They're just my favorite movie-going experience. That being said, they're in the news today. They're in the news today for all the wrong reasons again.
Oh, come
now,
on.
when I was at AMC, Jerry, who is the CEO there, brilliant man, brilliant leader, brilliant. Well, they've got this guy who's the CEO now named Adam Aaron, who, in my personal estimation, is terrible at his job. Terrible at his job. He has done dumb thing after dumb thing after dumb thing. And the board of AMC are equally a clown car full of Keystone cops because they just keep giving him bonuses and money.
Oh, that was the bonus guy.
That's the bonus guy. Hey, we laid off 30,000 people.
When we were all
$9 million bonus.
figuring out unemployment, he was like, cha-ching.
Yeah, he's collecting bonus. Well, they were laying off literally tens of thousands of their workers who didn't know how to pay rent, whatever.
I remember that.
They gave him millions and millions and millions in bonuses for taking people's jobs away. Now, we're going to talk about this here in a second. AMC just made an announcement that through Adam Aaron that they are raising ticket prices. They are limiting showtimes, and they are expanding their theater count. Now, I want to put this in context, okay? I want to put this in context. Let's look at the larger picture here as we go into the Campea classroom for a second. I want us to remember this. AMC was at death's door. AMC was on brutal life support. And again, this was through no fault of their own. The pandemic hit just as they spent all this money in getting their A-list program up and running. By the way, the greatest program in moviegoing. I love A-list. Their A-list program is a stroke of genius. I love it. It's fantastic. But they spent a ton of money getting A-list up and running. Perfectly fair. They also spent a ton of money in expansion and a real ass ton of money in upgrading their theaters, the leather motorized recliners, the Dolby cinemas.
Yeah, ours looks really good.
Oh yeah, with the laser projectors
like a renovation
and all
a
that
couple
kind of
years
stuff.
ago.
They spent enormous amounts of money doing that.
Yeah, I like it.
It was wise investment. I will give them, it was wise investment. Props to them for that. And at the moment they were done spending all that money and getting ready and poised to start now reaping the benefits of that investment, pandemic hit. At the worst possible time for them. So they were on life support. They were at death's door. They laid off in the tens of thousands of people. And listen, I don't fault them for laying people off. You're a business. You have no revenue. You have no money. I get it. It was a horrible thing, but it's something
It's
they needed
amazing
to
that
do.
Theaters even came back.
Well, yeah, but we'll get to
last
that in
year.
a second. We'll get to that part in a second. So they laid tens of thousands of people off. It looked like they were done. It looked like they were done. And then, out of nowhere, like Tinkerbell the fairy flying out of Adam Aaron's ass. The meme stock buys. Basically, out of nowhere, some dudes on Reddit just go, hey guys, just for fun, let's all go and inflate the price of AMC stock. And they went and inflated the price of AMC stock from something like $2. I might be off by a couple of bucks, but from something like $2 all the way up to like $40 and $50 and $60, which all of a sudden now AMC then instantly sold more stock and made up all of their losses in 2 days. Because
that's incredible.
Because a couple of guys on Reddit, nothing to do with AMC's ability of getting out of the problem.
I was just gonna say, were they like the brother of like one of the people laid off, and they're like, "Let me hook you up. Let me hook you up."
It's just that these Reddit got it going. They got the stock price. It's basically a lifeline, a helpless, floundering AMC in the middle of the ocean as the Titanic had already sank. Through no skill or credit to themselves, a random freakish lifeboat came floating along in the form of this Reddit inspired memeing stalking of the AMC stock, inflating it, and it saved them. It saved them. Out of nowhere. A lucky stroke of heavenly blessing came down and saved them. And Tinkerbell, still covered in Aaron's stench, floating around, waving her wand, going, good news for everybody, right? So AMC was saved through no work of their own. They were saved miraculously. As a result of them getting lucky,
that's pretty crazy.
AMC gave the CEO millions in bonuses. Millions in bonuses. So you know how much money we could send to each of the laid off workers we had?
Are dealing with?
Yeah. You know how much we could give to each of our things if we just took $9 million of that bonus and just split it up? And not huge, but it would be something. Anyway, take $9 million in bonuses. Okay, so they were at Death's Door. Granted, they were at Death's Door through no fault of their own. The pandemic came and it crushed them. It kicked them in the balls, and it wasn't their fault. I totally got to drive that point home. But then they were saved through no credit of their own. They got lucky. They got pure lucky. And I'm super glad they did, because I love my movie theater going experience, and AMC is my favorite theater. So they got lucky. As a result of getting lucky, they gave the CEO millions in bonuses. And now this is where it gets really strange. This is where it gets really strange. Because now you would think, right? You would think, let me spell wood right. You would think now is the time to focus on getting the audience back into the theaters. You would think, and by the way, our good friend, the Canadian Singing Postie, sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thank you, man. You would think that now, okay, vaccinations are rolling out, movies are opening again, people have not been going to the movies for a year and a half. It is time for us to focus now our attention and bring back in the audience. Let us entice the audience to come back to the movie theaters. Because there's three things that AMC does and is a part of the current circumstances. Three things that are part of the current circumstances of AMC. One, they have the longest pre-show in the industry. When I go to an AMC theater with a movie, the showtime that says 7 p.m., generally speaking, the movie starts at like 7:28, 7:30. Sure. I could be incorrect about them having the longest, but I believe I did read that on average, AMC theaters show the longest pre-show.
What's that theater Robert goes to all the time where
That's
it shows
ArcLight.
ArcLight?
Three.
Okay, let me hit up an
Three
ArcLight.
trailers. ArcLight's policy, they're shut down now, though. They're out of business.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, the pandemic shut them down. But they had a glorious policy. 3 trailers, 3 great trailers, and then the movie starts. That was their policy. AMC, 25 minutes to a half hour after the scheduled start time of the thing, they have that. Okay. So besides having the longest pre-show in the industry, some of the most expensive tickets in the industry as well. They're not the most costly movie ticket in town, but they're up there.
Do they do like $5 Sundays and Tuesdays?
I think in some territories they might, but I don't think they in general across the board. I think they might have in some points, and other points they did, but in general they are one of the most expensive things to do. Now the third thing they do is some of the most expensive concessions in the industry. So when you go, listen, I have generally not faulted movie theaters for charging a lot of money for a popcorn and a soda. They do. They charge a lot. But that's because they barely make any money off the movie tickets. They get a very small fraction. They get a very small portion of that movie ticket. So the way movie theaters actually make money is through their concession stand. One theater owner at CinemaCon one year got up on stage and said this, ladies and gentlemen, he was talking to an auditorium filled with movie theater industry people. He said, we are not in the movie business. We're in the candy business, because that's what actually pays their bills. But still, even though I understand you need to have a huge markup because that's how you keep the lights on, you also got to recognize when maybe you're getting a little bit too expensive. So they had three things. They have the longest pre-show in the industry. They have some of the most expensive tickets in the industry, and they have some of the most expensive concessions in the industry. So you would think now that the pandemic, we're on the flip side of, getting things up and running again. You would think that AMC, and by the way, our friend Kevin Cow sends a super chat badge. Thank you, Kevin. You would think that they would gathering in their boardrooms. All right, we need to give a really attractive movie-going experience presentation to our audience. We've got to entice them to come back into the theaters, right? We got to get them back into the habit, because not only have they not been there for a year and a half, they formed a habit of not coming for over a year and a half. You got to get back into the habit of coming back to the movie theaters. How can we entice people to do that? Well, the brain trust at AMC and that little Tinkerbell flying around all over the place, they decided we know how to get people back into the theaters. We'll increase the ticket prices and give them fewer showtimes. Yeah, that's how we'll get people back to the theater. That's how we'll do it. Now, there are three, in this article on IndieWire, there are three key things that we just found out that AMC is doing. AMC is doing three key things, okay? Three key things, all right? Number one, they have bought new theaters. They are raising ticket prices. And three, they are raising concession prices. These are three things they just announced. Now let's look at these things here for a second.
So they're raising all three of those.
Yes. So they bought new theaters.
When we're facing Delta and we're facing more challenges. Okay, I'm listening.
Yep.
Sorry, continue.
Okay.
I'm a little...
So let's look at each of these three things. One, they bought new theaters. I want to point something out here. All three of these, the purpose of all three of these has one purpose: increase stock price. That the purpose of all three of these moves is to raise investor confidence and raise stock price. Okay. That's the key. Their key is not the long-term survival of the industry. Their key is short-sighted. Let's get stock trade. Now, let's talk about this first one here. They've bought a couple of new theaters. We've talked about this a little bit here on the show recently. This is actually not a bad move. This is not a bad move because, ArcLight, the Grove Theaters in LA.
I was going to say, with them being out.
With them being out, there are some very key territories that now need to be serviced. And if you don't move in there to take advantage of that, one of your competitors is. And it always looks good. It's good for your brand if you can be the ones to go in there. Now, again, you're spending money right now, risky, but I will give credit where it's due. Taking advantage of this situation and expanding, getting those key iconic locations to have your movie theater there instead of your competitor, not a bad move. It doesn't help getting more people to the theaters again, but it's not a bad move. All right, let's look at the second thing. And by the way, Donald Thomas sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Donald. Number two is raising ticket prices. Do I need to say anything? Is there anything I need to say about this? You are in a period of time right now where you should be focused on enticing the audience to come back.
And especially with streaming, with what's going on with streaming and that huge debacle. Wow.
Is this going to entice people to come back? Now, listen, I understand. I do. The studios make it very difficult for the theaters to make money. They do. Every year, year after year, the studios are putting the screws more and more to the theaters and extracting and juicing out more and more money out of their pockets, and it's difficult. I understand that. But for the long-term survival of the industry, you have got to get people back in the theaters again, and the best way to do that is not by announcing, hey guys, we're raising our ticket prices again. What? Who told you that you know what the audience wants to see? They want to see higher ticket prices. That's what the audience wants to see. I didn't tell them that. Did you tell them that? I don't think you did. And so it's like, okay. Now, on top of all this, they're raising concession prices. Again, already some of the highest in the industry. But there was one fourth thing I forgot to mention here. The fourth thing is this, is that they are now limiting showtimes. This is not hard and fast across everything, but the thing that this article points out is that basically, here, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this one thing that's in the article here from IndieWire. He goes, a full-priced AMC ticket average is $10.50. That's the national average across all showtimes. It averages $10.50, which is one of the highest in the industry, reflecting a 50-cent increase. Concession prices also increased. Theaters usually prefer to downplay price hikes, but Adam Aron touted them in a move to raise investor confidence. Similarly, he recognized that benefit of significantly reducing the number of showtimes. Rather than operate 7 days a week with matinees starting at noon or earlier and the last showtime starting around 10 p.m., the last show now may start at around 8 p.m., Sundays through Thursdays. So not only...
Porque why though?
Not only...
I don't like this.
Are they raising the price of the price of the tickets, raising the prices of the
What does the
concession
time
stands?
have to do with the stocks?
Because
I
they
just
want to
finished season
operate.
2 of Succession, so I only understand half of this stock nonsense.
Right. But
you're going to have to explain that to me.
But if you don't have a showtime, if you have fewer showtimes, you have fewer costs. We don't have to be open as much.
Okay.
We can be, but you're now making it less convenient for people to go to the movies. You're making it more expensive for them to go. You're making it more expensive for them to get a snack once they're there. And you're making it more inconvenient for them to find a showtime that works for them. Instead of being in the mode of let's get people back to the theaters. Here's the big thing. Here's the big thing. When you are a company like AMC, and you are part of a theatrical industry that has been around for a century, a celebrated part of our culture. I remember when somebody bought one of the more major sports teams, I won't name names, but when one of the more major sports teams was recently purchased about 5 or 6 years ago, the new owner said this, I recognize I do not own this team. I recognize that I am now the steward of the legacy of this team. I am now the steward of the legacy of this team that has been around for almost 100 years. The board and the CEO of AMC, they have an obligation to say, we are not just running a business, we are stewards of an industry. We are stewards of a century-long
legacy,
cultural legacy. Instead, I'm going to tell you right now, in my opinion, AMC does not care if they survive right now. The board and the CEO of AMC right now are more focused on short-term financial gains through short-term stock spikes for people to cash out than they are about the long-term health of the industry. Because if they were concerned about the long-term health of the industry, they would not be, look, I'm not saying they have to lower prices, but lowering prices temporarily would be smart. But don't raise prices. If they were focused on the long-term health and legacy of this industry, they would be at least keeping concession prices the same or lowering them, not raising them.
So this is a short-term game.
This is all about short-term gain. Adam Aron and the folks running AMC right now have zero interest in what the long-term legacy of the industry is. I mean, look, because you cannot tell me that a company that in the midst of the lowest theater attendance since the birth of this industry, that they are expanding new theaters, which I don't hold that one against them. I've already said that.
No,
I don't hold that one against them.
I get that.
But in trying to get people back to the theaters, they are raising ticket prices, raising concession prices, and limiting the number of showtimes. They are making it harder for people to come back to the theaters than making it easier, because guess what? When the shareholders hear this, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to charge more, great, and a little bit of stock bump, stuff like that. But it's all fog. It's an illusion. And these guys are going to run this industry into the ground.
Let me ask you some questions.
Yes.
1, my brain hurts. 2, like, wait, what did I learn in college? Okay. As a stockholder, if they were to take their prices down a little and take things down a little, not a whole lot, that would incentivize people to return to the theaters. Why wouldn't that be more of a positive to a shareholder to go, oh, well, people are really going to go back now. Look at this. You know, it's hard enough. You have streaming at home. This is going to drive people back. I don't understand why they wouldn't either do that or do one incentive that is in the favor of the people that would excite shareholders. What is it about this that makes shareholders go, oh, more people are going to go? Or I don't quite understand.
Here's the thing, because the vast majority
I'm blonde
of stockholders, like look at all of us when we jump on Robinhood and we buy stocks and shares.
Okay.
Most of us are not looking at, I wonder what this is going to be in 10 years. We check it every 15 minutes. When I owned Dogecoin, we are checking Robinhood every 15 minutes to see what the stock. We are looking at what money can we make right now. What money can we make right now? And I think that's the way they're look. Look, again, I don't want to presume to know what is going on inside the minds of
what would be the devil's advocate argument of doing this? If you were to take the devil's advocate position and go, well, what would your argument be?
The stockholders liked hearing it and will give you a little bit of a stock bump. I mean, that's it. There's no long-term benefit to this. I mean, unless, listen, look, I'm not going to pretend. Like, hell, I studied law and theology. I don't have an economics degree.
I studied wedding planning and theology.
Now, in law, we had to study. Oddly enough, if you study law, they force you have to take accounting. If you study law, you have to take accounting. So I did a little bit, but I am no economist. If any of you guys at home want to tell me how raising ticket prices, raising concession prices, and limiting the number of showtimes when you should be trying to get people back in the theater, if you can tell me how this benefits AMC, I would love to hear it.
As Michael Scott said, tell me like I'm 5 years old. Okay. Tell me like I'm 3 years old.
I don't know. I just read this article. And again, I understand that over time, industries raise prices. But right
now, if we didn't have Delta, and if we didn't have the hospitalizations rising, and if we didn't have like this new battle of like, come on, wear your mask, get vaccine, like, you know, because what are we? We're 8 months out of not of Corona, but in terms of people getting vaccinated and stuff, we should be in a time where things are like super positive. Corona was a thing in the past. Let's move forward. But because we have Delta roaming around and we're still dealing with this, I feel like this is a very weird time to do that.
Here's the thing. There are two ways to make $1 million. A friend of mine once told me this, and it's a really good analogy. There are two ways to make $1 million. All right. And this seems to be what's happening in the movie theater industry. And frankly, this isn't brand new. This seems to be what has been happening in the movie theater industry for the last 10 years. There are two ways to make $1 million, my friend said. One, sell 1 million things for $1. That's one way to make $1 million. The second way is sell one thing for $1 million. There's that basic principle, right? Get more and more people in the theaters at reasonable rates and prices. We make X amount of money. Or we can get fewer people in, but we charge them each more. We can maybe make that same amount of money. But here's the problem. It is diminishing returns. And I'm sure I spelled diminishing wrong. I did. It is diminishing returns in that theaters see, we're losing lodging. We're losing money. let's raise prices to compensate, right?
Yeah, I get that.
Let's raise prices to compensate. The problem with that is that move causes fewer people to come to the movies. So the theaters look at that and say fewer people came. Let's raise prices to compensate, which causes fewer people. And you get this cycle. We've seen in theaters this cycle of, okay, we had a fewer people come to the movies this year.
Mm-hmm.
Should we do things to entice more of them back? Nah, let's just raise the prices to compensate for the fewer people coming.
Okay.
But by raising the prices, even fewer people come. And so they go, well, let's raise the prices to compensate. Then fewer people come. And it starts this cycle. The problem is once you hit zero, there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And they seem to be in a Fast and the Furious racing for pinks race to get to zero. That's what it seems like.
Let me ask you this. And
Yes.
this may be a silly question because economics is not my strong suit. I can design the hell out of a ballroom, though. Is this a buildup maybe to when Delta is hopefully a thing of the past, them going, guess what? We're here for you. We're here for the people. Let me pick a number. Our ticket price is 16 because we love you. We're going to bring it down to 14.
So-
do you think it's a setup to then make a reward at a later time?
So kind of what Best Buy would do sometimes, which is they one day would raise the price. This is true. Best Buy has done this. They raise the price of a laptop to from $1,400 to $1,500 for 24 hours. And then they say, this laptop's on sale for $1,450, which is still more expensive than it was a week ago, but technically it's on sale. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't see them doing that at all.
Okay.
So again, I just look at, to me, sometimes when I look at the leadership of AMC, I see that painting in my head of a bunch of dogs playing cards. That's just what I see in my head. I don't know.
You know how sometimes companies will kind of follow each other or be inspired or follow the trends of the market, as they say on Succession. Why isn't Regal doing this? Why wouldn't Regal do this? Or are we going to see Regal do this soon after?
Regal, I mean, look, we need to move on here, and go on to our next topic. But I will say this: Regal's in a little bit of a different situation in that they are a multi-company thing. Like Regal is owned by Cineworld in Europe. So Europe has they're the big theater chain out there. Cineworld, they own Regal. They do business a little bit differently. How? But I'll tell you what, you raise a good point because I'm going to be very, very curious to see how places like Regal are going to respond. Places like Cinemark and Landmark and there are a bunch of other theater chains as well. I am going to be very interested in seeing how they respond as well. Anyway, you can tell this is very frustrating to me. I get frustrated when the things I love seem to do stupid things, and I love AMC Theaters, and they're a pack of morons, and that's really frustrating to me because they're my favorite. They're my favorite. It's like my freaking love of the Toronto Maple Leafs. They suck and choke every year. And I hate it.
But I love them.
But I love them. I love them.
My love burns deep.
If I didn't care about them, I wouldn't care if they drive themselves in the ground. But I care. I care, damn it. I wish I didn't care about AMC, but I care. And they're driving it into the ground. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about all that? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.